Now it didn't ask me for Robinson entered the wedding. Was that too?
Yeah, I said it, Miss Robbins.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Councilmember Leggett, I have not heard back from, I can't think of her last name, because the time she provided didn't work. So I'm gonna reach out to her again today. I'll send her an email, as a matter of fact, find out what the situation is.
Participation. I keep doing it. Participation means your hand is raised. Well, I want to participate. That means the same thing as raising your hand. Do you see a word to say hand raised? I told you to keep tapping on it.
Are you able to mute everybody, Mr. Gaston? Because it sounds like we're getting some feedback from some folks who might not know they're unmuted.
Yep, I have muted everyone.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I don't know if anybody else is going to join us. However, I wanted to go ahead and get started. I think we have a quorum. I'm looking at my Councilmember Monroe has rejoined us, so now we definitely have a quorum.
Okay.
Okay. So with that being said, yep, go ahead.
Mr. Gaston, will you have the presentation on Zoom so I can follow along, or should I have a printed version?
I can pull it up right now. Give me 1 second. I think we do need to do some protocol. Don't we have to call
Mhm.
roll and all that kind of stuff? Right? Even though it is a hearing, we should
I
call.
believe so. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
so
Town clerk?
let's begin. Yeah, so this
Yes,
is
sir.
going to be the beginning of a public hearing between the mayor and town council of Brentwood, Thursday, June 29th, 2023, beginning at 6:36 p.m. And we're here to discuss ordinance 2023-03, shrubs and trees. And as Mr. Gaston said, if our town clerk could please call the roll.
All right, we have Councilmember Lauren Roque,
Present.
Councilmember Marcus Monroe,
Present.
and then Vice Mayor Stefan Leggett.
Present. And a reminder to
And
folks
town-
that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Mayor Rocio Lopez, Councilmember Keanu Taylor, Town Administrator Mr. Gaston,
Present.
Police Chief Calvin Washington, Treasurer Shelley Dorsey, Town Clerk Larry Moran here, and then lastly our Town Attorney Mr. Deloach.
And Mr. Moran, if you wouldn't mind marking everyone's absence down as excused.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And for folks who are watching at home, there will be a time to comment live via Zoom. If you're more comfortable to comment via email, you can make a public comment during the meeting at info@brentwoodmd.gov. Mr. Gaston, should we do upcoming events before or after the
We have a
presentation?
number of upcoming events, and I don't want anyone to not know what's upcoming in the town of Brentwood. We've got some exciting events coming up, and I'm going to mention them as often as I can to get as many people out. So with that being said, give me 1 second. I'm going to switch the share on the presentation and go back to the agenda, because
Yes, sir.
actually there's some items that were not on the list. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Okay. Just bear with me real quick. Here we go. Shared. So this is the first time we've actually done a Zoom meeting since I've been as a staff employee. So hopefully everyone can bear with us. Hopefully you can see this. Can you get a thumbs up? Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So Tuesday, July 4th, Town Hall and Public Works will be closed. Need to do an addendum because the mayor has decided that Monday and Tuesday, the town hall will be closed for both days. So staff can enjoy the festivities, if you will. So town hall and Public Works will be closed. With that being said, Bates will pick up yard waste. So continue to put out your yard waste for Monday, because Bates will pick up yard waste. Then Tuesday we're closed. Of course, Tuesday is the Independence Day. The next meeting that I wanted to add was the Green Team. Their next meeting is Saturday, July 8th.
That's the safety committee, public safety committee meeting is Saturday,
sorry.
July 8th at 10 a.m.
My apologies. Hold on. And Councilmember Taylor has joined us. You said that's the public safety meeting?
Correct.
I am glad you're on the call to clarify that. And that's at 10 a.m. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that'll be at Town Hall. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Outstanding. All right, so that's Saturday, July 8th. Then Tuesday, no, I take that back. The next meeting I want to announce is the Monday, July 17th, senior committee meeting. So anyone who's interested in joining the town of Brentwood senior committee, that will be Monday, July 17th at 10 a.m. And we're actually going to have a presentation from the Department of, bear with me here, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. They're going to talk about some of the programs that are available for our seniors and some of our residents that need a little help, the relay system and things of that nature. We met them at MML and we invited them to come and speak to our seniors because there's some programs that we believe that they could take advantage of that they may not be aware of. So that'll be Monday, July 17th at 10 a.m. and that will be at Town Hall as well. Councilmember Roque has her hand up. Would you like to say something, ma'am?
Saturday, July 15th is the Green Team meeting
There we
at
go.
9 a.m. It's before your, yep. Saturday, July 15th. Green Team meeting at 9 a.m. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you for that. I knew that green team was in there somewhere, so I apologize for that. We've also been joined by Councilmember Taylor, and we've been joined by our esteemed Mayor Lopez. We'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then our town clerk will adjust his attendance for their presence. So if Councilmember Taylor and or Mayor Lopez would like to say something, please do at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gaston. I just want to open, I'm sorry, the hearing of the mayor and council for the ordinance 2023-03 shrubs and trees.
I got to get used to this Zoom thing. I got to take myself off mute. Next is Councilmember Taylor. Would you like to make an introduction, ma'am?
I'm Councilwoman Taylor, Councilwoman for the town of Brentwood. I just wanted to apologize for my lateness. My Wi-Fi is down, and so I had some trouble getting in, but I am happy to be here tonight.
And we're glad that you are here. For those who are not aware, this meeting is being recorded, and what will happen once we go through the hearing, we will then take a 5-minute pause, and then we will reconvene with a new agenda to deal with the special meeting. So with that, I apologize. With that being said, let's see, July 17th is the green team. I did that. Okay. That's a senior meeting. July 17th is a senior meeting. That's right. And as I stated, the Department of what is it? Give me one. Oh, it is the, sorry about that. Housing and Community Development. They will come out and make a presentation on July 17th for the senior meeting. Tuesday, August 1st is our National Night Out. That will be 5:30 to 8 p.m. here at Town Hall. Tuesday, August 15th will be the next council meeting, and that's at 7 p.m. on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And then, as I stated, I'm really excited about this particular next 3 items, and I'm going to let the person that's actually chairing / spearheading that speak about the Town of Brentwood Summer Concert Series.
Sorry about that. So Saturday, July 29th, Saturday, August 19th, and Saturday, September 9th, we have some homegrown music that's playing at the gazebo. The events each evening begin at 5 p.m. and the music starts at 6. It's a totally free event, family friendly. And so we're encouraging everyone to bring a picnic dinner and enjoy a day in the park with some great music from around town.
Fantastic. Do you want to make any other comments, or is that it?
That's it for now. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And we've got Mayor Lopez, who's always busy. You want to talk about your signature event that you've been having for a number of years that is going to be on Thursday, August 24th, at between 5 and 7 p.m.
Yes, thank you, James. This is our annual back to school event, which I'm getting some local cosmetologists that will be offering to the first 10 registered to get free haircuts. So we are preparing that for August 24th from 5 to 8. And I also will be celebrating for the first time on August 6th. It's going to be the our first annual celebration of the El Salvadorian Day. So as you know, the El Salvador diaspora has been recognized by the United States as August 6th. And now we also will be doing something on a Sunday from 3 to 6, I think we said. And we're gonna have in some pupusas, which is for traditional dish, culturally, dish from El Salvador. So that's gonna be happening on August 6th. That's it.
All right then, so why don't we now go into the presentation? And I will turn it over to Vice Mayor Monroe. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Leggett. And I'm gonna pull up your presentation. And that should do that. All right then, hopefully you can see that. If you can't, let me know. I can make it a little larger. This is page 1. And we go from there. Council member.
It's so funny because I made this presentation really just for my own edification, but it's gotten a lot of exercise, which is great. So, so this ordinance, going back before the presentation, grew out of conversations that we had with folks at the public safety meeting at Town Hall. I guess that was in April, May. Was that middle of May that we had that public safety meeting? And a lot of residents recommended that we do something, I think would be a quote, about all the overgrown hedges at various intersections. And we actually had that feedback also from our state senator, who said the same, that he was willing to certainly, support a traffic study and make changes to 38th Street, but that Brentwood needed to do what they could as well to address the issue of poor visibility, which leads to traffic accidents in Brentwood. And so this presentation and this sort of thought process grew out of those conversations with our residents and with our elected representatives in Annapolis. So the first part of this presentation just talks about the problem, which is that shrubs and trees are obstructing clean sight lines along busy streets and crowded intersections. We have some examples here to view. We see one corner of 38th Street and Utah. We see one corner of Volta and 38th Street. We see Taylor and 38th Street. And these are just a handful of instances in which drivers cannot see each other as they're approaching intersections. They also cannot see children or even adults for that matter as they are walking on sidewalks or riding bikes. And so obviously that is a problem. Our goal in this exercise is to maintain clear lines of vision at all intersections, not just 38th Street, and to protect the safety and welfare of the public. Of course, whenever we look at doing something new, the best thing to do first is to look at what our neighbors are doing and not reinvent the wheel. So the first place I looked was the county, and I found the county ordinance regarding fences. And it says that on no corner lot, no visual obstruction more than 3 feet high above the curb level shall be located within the triangle formed by an intersection of 2 streets for about 25 feet. And the county provided this nice graphic here to illustrate sort of that clear vision area that is 25 feet long and only 3 feet high. And that is in regard to fences to, of course, make sure those intersections are safe for pedestrians and motorists. Looking at the Brentwood Code, I didn't see anything too specific about the height of vegetation or shrubs, barring perhaps maybe the height of your grass that grows on your lawn. But I did find the following quote out of chapter 50 regarding fences. It says it shall be unlawful to construct, erect, or modify any fence that encroaches upon a public right-of-way or interferes with vehicular or pedestrian traffic or visibility. So again, that's the Brentwood Code speaking to the importance of a fence not interfering with the visibility of folks in their cars or folks who are walking around. And of course, these questions or these chapters of code led to the question, how are hedges any different than fences? Because I have equal trouble looking through and having x-ray vision through a fence as I do through shrubs and trees. So what are our neighbors doing was the next question. And so we began looking at some of our more progressive neighbors first. That honestly, I usually look at Tacoma Park and Mount Rainier first. And at Tacoma Park, they have an ordinance that says vegetation taller than 3 feet above a street surface, except for a forest tree, is not permitted within 20 feet. So there's a 5-foot variation, right? So 20 feet of the corner of a property. And if there is vegetation in that 20-foot area, vegetation is located on top of a wall, then the retaining wall is considered part of that 3 feet area. Hyattsville goes a little further, speaking not so much about intersections, but about hedges that border public sidewalks or paths. Hyattsville says that no hedge bordering upon any public sidewalk or path shall be more than 4 feet in height. We know this is important for folks as they're getting in and out of their driveway. If they can't see that child running down the street, chasing a butterfly along the sidewalk or what have you, then we have a problem. So it's not just a matter of intersections, it's also a matter of intersections of the roadways along with the driveways to make sure that the driver in the driveway and as well as the pedestrian or motorist outside the driveway can see each other as the resident is coming and going from their driveway. And lastly, Riverdale, I liked their language the best. They said it would be unlawful for the owner or occupant of any premise within the town to permit hedge or shrubbery within 3 feet of any public sidewalk or path to grow to a height of more than 3 feet. So we see a difference there, right? Hyattsville said within 4 feet. Riverdale says 3 feet, measured from the surface of the sidewalk, grade, or path. And actually, as a council, we discussed, should this ordinance be 4 feet tall shrubs that is allowed or 3 feet tall shrubs that are allowed? And I believe one of our council members who does have young children was very quick to encourage us to go with the 3-foot model. My assumption being that it better protected small children. And then section B, it says in the Riverdale model that on any corner lot in any residential zone, there shall be no hedge, wall, terrace, shrubbery, structure, planting, or other obstruction to a vision having a height greater than 3 feet above the curb level for 25 feet from the intersection. So there we have a very similar sort of ordinance regarding intersections that is similar to the county code regarding fences. And again, I would purport that there is no difference when it comes to visibility between hedges and fences. And then the last slide in this presentation shows sort of what that clear vision area would look like in a perfect world when you have right angles at all your intersections. I think that shows a 30-foot clearance, clear vision area. So perhaps that would be somebody else's model. And then of course, down below, we have what it looks like in Brentwood, where we have these crazy, crazy intersections. So we needed to write an ordinance that cleanly addressed these various intersections with abnormal property lines. And we needed to address the importance of safety, of course, for residents, whether they are driving or walking down city streets. And thus ends my presentation with the exception of reading of the ordinance.
Give me one, oh, sorry. Give me 1 hot second and I will pull up the ordinance and you can read the ordinance. I mean, people can follow along as you read the ordinance. Give me 1 hot second. I'll pull it up now.
While Mr. Gaston is pulling this up, I will mention that you know, I think this ordinance was first introduced during our work session in June, and this presentation was first made during our regular meeting in May. So we are, I guess you could say this is 1, 2, 3. This is actually the 4th time we've discussed this. And so we've sort of fine-tuned the language in this ordinance over the course of several meetings to, thank you, Mr. Gaston, to what we have today. So, and I do want to thank Councilmember Rauch for helping me write the whereases. And that's where we'll begin. Ordinance 2023-03, Shrubs and Trees. Whereas the life and health of the town of Brentwood's residents are our utmost priority, and whereas traffic crashes are among the leading causes of death and injury within the United States and the state of Maryland, and whereas traffic deaths and serious injuries in the United States have disproportionately impacted pedestrians, cyclists, people of color, low-income households, older adults and youth, people with disabilities, and households with limited vehicle access. And whereas it is the express interest of this town to avoid preventable accidents and deaths by maintaining clear lines of vision at intersections for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. Now therefore be it ordained by the mayor and council of the town of Brentwood that chapter 44-7, section 2 of the Brentwood Code is amended as follows. No person may maintain or allow to exist on the property which they own or which is in their possession or control, trees, shrubs, hedges, or other vegetation or projecting overhanging limbs thereof, which obstruct the view necessary for the safe operation of motor vehicles or otherwise cause danger to the public in the use of town streets. It shall be the duty of the person who owns, possesses, or controls the property to remove or trim and keep trimmed any obstruction to the view. No hedge bordering within 3 feet of any public sidewalk, public street, or public path may grow to a height of more than 3 feet, measured from the surface of the sidewalk, grade, or path. A clear vision area shall be maintained on the corners of all property adjacent to an intersection. The clear vision area for all corner lots shall be that area within 25 feet of the corner of a property located at an intersection of 2 streets. A clear vision area shall contain no planting, wall, structure, or temporary or permanent obstruction except for a utility pole, except when the height of the obstruction does not exceed 3 feet in height, measured from the top of the curb or where no curb exists from the street center grade line. Trees exceeding this height may be located in this area. All branches and foliage are to be removed to the height of 8 feet above the grade. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance or any of the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed, and this ordinance shall become effective at the expiration of 30 calendar days following its adoption.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At this moment, I will open the floor for comments.
Thank you. We actually have, before you get started, we did have an online, somebody sent an email in. I know there are people online, but if the town clerk could read that one email that somebody sent, that would be great. And then we can open the floor to anyone on the call who would like to make a comment.
All right, so we do have one comment that came in via email, as Mr. Gaston said. The comment goes, "Hello, Brentwood leaders. I am not a resident, but I spend a good deal of time in Brentwood, and I'm very invested in your vibrant community. I work every day next door in Mount Rainier at Red Dirt Studio. I was thrilled to see the new ordinance about trimming greenery that blocks visibility for drivers. I myself avoid certain intersections because I know I can't see around the bushes safely, particularly those along 38th Street. I had a close call at Taylor and 38th, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I hope folks will weigh in and support this initiative. Thank you for your leadership in helping to make Brentwood awesome and safe. Sincerely, Leslie."
Thank you, Town Clerk Moran. We've got a number of people who've got their hands raised, and I'm not sure who was first, so I'm just going to give everybody an opportunity. We'll start with, and I do not want to butcher your last name, but Olga, would you like to go first?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members. I would like to express my agreement with what was stated in the comments that was read out. I do agree that ensuring the town safety by clear lines of vision is really important. Unless I missed it, and I was trying to listen very carefully, I did not hear any provisions for how the town will support the households who may experience material difficulties in the enforcement of this provision. I walk a lot, so I am one of the pedestrians. And it is my visual impression that while of course it's not a statement that all sites with overgrown shrubs sites where, according to the look of the house, persons may experience material difficulties, but it is my impression that some of those sites are houses where people experience material difficulties. And I am sure the mayor and council members have discussed it, and I would like to hear your thoughts. Obviously, it's important, but it's like what happens, how the enforcement is going to be done. What if people genuinely do not have the money to hire somebody to do it? What will be the town doing then?
Would the mayor or vice mayor like to comment?
I would just wanted to ask, may we take all comments and then may we address them individually once we've received all public comments?
That makes perfect sense to me. Next will be former council member Jerry Burgess, if he would like to make a statement.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I was able to look at the proposed ordinance 2023-03 and would like to offer a few observations and maybe some comments. First, I would ask that the council to consider a little bit more nuance in the ordinance. Specifically, there are many different intersections in the town, as you know just as well as I do, some with curbs, some with alleyways, some with sidewalks, some which might be considered major intersections, such as the mini along 38th Street. And I would suggest you explore assigning different visibility triangles, those sight triangles, based on different geometric situations and the presumed speed that intersection might be approached. So for perhaps in some areas a 5x10 triangle on an alley abutment with a curb, street, and no sidewalk might be more appropriate. Also, for intersections, there is some evidence out there to suggest that larger triangles with totally unimpeded vision encourages speeding, which kind of defeats the purpose of traffic safety in this case. I ask you to consider that. And also in a town that values its woody species, trees and shrubs, we all know I like trees and shrubs, I would encourage you to incorporate a variety of traffic calming techniques and not just rely on what could be thought of as a one-size-fits-all blunt force approach. So in some cases, it's the parked cars that are the issue, not the vegetation. Secondly, and there's in some similar ordinances, such as you mentioned earlier, Vice Mayor Legan, there are flexible code variances and exemptions for specific circumstances, such as tree boxes, etc. And finally, I see that the ordinance, seeing the ordinance, that there is an allowance for trees provided the branches are trimmed to 8 feet. That seems great. That seems reasonable at first glance, but it also prevents the planting of saplings, which become those trees, since the saplings can never grow to maturity because of the height restriction. So maybe some nuance could be incorporated there. So we clearly want street trees to grow and mature. So maybe some allowances should be made, just like we do for power poles, which are remnant trees. So just to sum, I think your ordinance is well-meaning, but should have some modifications to allow for nuances at different types of intersections, inclusions of variances or additional exemptions instead of just a one-size-fits-all approach. And thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, former council member Burgess. I will now turn it over to Robinson. Did not hear back from Robinson. How about Liz Marshall?
Thank you. Yes, hello. My comments are going to echo a lot of what Jerry said. I oppose the broad brush nature with which this ordinance is planned to be applied. We live at the corner of Jackson and Taylor Street, and what we have on our corner at the moment is a dense thicket of native honeysuckle vines. These vines feed hummingbirds all summer long, and they shelter birds all winter long. We have 2 native deciduous holly trees that host native butterflies and feed birds throughout the winter with their berries. We have a native oak tree that we planted in an effort to replace the oaks that are succumbing to drought and oak decline throughout the neighborhood. And this oak would someday contribute to the tree canopy in the town and act as a host plant for more than 500 native butterflies and moths, so that our residents will have butterflies to chase down the sidewalk. And we also have a native redbud tree that supports native leafcutter bees and is home to several bird nests each year. What we don't have at the corner of Jackson and Taylor are car accidents. I've never even heard anyone honk at that corner. And this ordinance is asking me to cut all of my vegetation down to avoid car accidents that don't happen on that corner. And the irony is that what you would see if I cut all my trees and shrubs down would be a line of cars that are legally parked along Taylor Street, not oncoming traffic. So is the town also planning to restrict parking within 25 feet of a corner? I noticed all the little the ideal visibility figures shown by Councilmember Leggin showed it as if there would not be parked cars on those corners, but that is in fact what is on the corner. So is the town also planning to restrict parking within 20 feet of the corner? And I'm also curious whether the town has done due diligence in determining how many property owners and how much property would be affected by this ordinance. I think the safety problem is localized, it's specific to certain corners, and that the solution should be as well. So why is the town not first trying safety mirrors? Safety mirrors are designed specifically for the purpose of increasing visibility on blind corners, and they could be placed in a targeted way, not applied uniformly in a broad brush way across the entire neighborhood, and therefore affecting areas where no problem exists. The ordinance appears to dismiss the importance of healthy neighborhood habitat structure in a rush to impose a car-centric solution on the entire neighborhood, whether the solution is required or not. Trees and shrubs are critical to diversifying our urban ecosystems, and I think the town should be encouraging people to plant them, not demanding that they cut them down in areas where no problem exists. And I believe that no problem exists in most of the locations where this ordinance will apply. Most of the locations are not busy streets and crowded intersections as they are on 38th Street. So basically safety is important, of course, but trees and shrubs are also important if we want to make our neighborhood home to birds and pollinators and fireflies. There are other ways to improve visibility on blind corners. I feel this ordinance is short-sighted, far-reaching, and appeals as a solution only if you look at it through the lens of a cars above all else attitude and fail to recognize the importance of the trees and shrubs that you're asking us to cut down. I'm disappointed that the council is considering this broad measure without first trying more localized measures that have demonstrated safety potential, like safety mirrors. But if the measure is adopted, I hope the town would adopt both a grandfather clause and a variance clause by which existing homeowners would not be required to comply unless their shrubs and trees could be demonstrated to affect sightlines on dangerous corners, with clear guidelines provided about what constitutes a blind or dangerous corner and how those sightlines should be measured. I think this is a draconian measure that's into going after a mosquito with a 2x4. It might solve the problem, but you're going to break a lot of other things in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marshall. Next, we will go with Mr. Is it Remlin? I think it's Remlin.
Yes, that's me. Hi, and my wife Mary is here too. I'll be brief. I'm just throwing my hat in the ring to echo Jerry, Liz, and others who believe that this should be nuanced, that there should be some type of variance in here that would allow for shrubbery that doesn't obstruct views. We're all for more traffic safety, but we do love our shrubs on our corner lot, and they're not obstructing traffic views at all in any shape or way. Rather, they're beautiful and they provide some privacy and beauty to the street and privacy for us. So we would hope that there could be some variance or something that could be worked in to allow for things that don't obstruct traffic. Yeah, I'd be curious to know what could be worked in. I don't have a definite solution, but I'm curious to know what could be worked in to allow for shrubs that don't obstruct views on our lots, even if they happen to be, my last reading of it was 3 feet was going to be the new height. But if it could be 4 or 5, and especially if they don't obstruct traffic, that would be great. And that's my little piece.
Would your wife like to say something since she's on camera?
What Joe said, we just would like to have maintain privacy as well in our backyard.
She's gonna have to speak up because we cannot hear.
I was just agreeing with what my husband said, and we just would like to maintain the privacy that we have in our backyard. So if you could take that into consideration as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we're gonna try again with Miss Robinson. Ms. Robinson? Yes, no? Going once? Going twice? Sold. I'm not sure, but we can come back to her. At this juncture, oh, there she is. Is that Ms. Robinson?
Marlene, they calling you.
All right, well, we're gonna move on. We'll come back to Ms. Robinson. So is anyone else want to have any comments? Yes, no. Okay. Oh, wait, it looks like Ms. Robinson's trying to come around. No, okay. I will turn this back over to the vice mayor and or mayor to, oh wait, she's got her finger up. Then she went away. I will turn this back over to the mayor and vice mayor for next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Gaston. Just want to say that we can definitely work on variance. We discuss the funding portion for those residents that are going through some hardship. So that's gonna be case by case. We did have that conversation, so that is just my comment. So I'm going to turn this to Vice Mayor.
Just help me understand the format. Is it better for us to discuss our residents' concerns and questions during the special meeting, or is it better to do it during the hearing?
That's a good question. My suggestion would be to move on to the meeting, because in that way you can make a formal, you can address each concern formally, if you will. This is to hear the residents' comments and things of that nature. So that would be my suggestion. I'm still trying to get Ms. Robinson to make a comment, but she keeps going in and out. Ms. Robinson, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. What would be your comment,
thank you so
ma'am?
much. Yes, thank you so much. And I really I apologize for the problem with the with my speaker. Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we're here. We're waiting for you to make the comment.
Yes, I want to make the comment regarding the denial from my two trees in front of the property, which was on town property. And I want to make a statement about it because I think it's important so that, you know, there could be some adjustments made in the future in terms of working together in a partnership. Even though the request was denied, I contacted my outside representative and he was willing to listen and investigate the concerns of myself and other residents regarding the removal of the trees. After they had an investigation done and they had the resources come out, the trees were removed immediately. Why? Not because of just the danger, because they were on city property. So I didn't understand why. I was told that I could get the estimates and I would have to do the work myself. I don't know any seniors or family members or residents in the town should be asked to cut the trees that belong to the city. So in closing, I wanted to just offer just a few things about the tree committee. I'm hoping that they may have an ongoing plan that they can schedule and prune the trees that belong to the city. I'm not talking about personal property, but to the city. Or they could develop a partnership with organizations that have resources that could help them identify funding, such as the committee that came out. They help to cut down those trees out front on the city property. And if they have other resources or expertise on a Tree USA committee, that residents are not aware of, and to improve the training for residents and committee members so that we can know what's expected and you all can know where there are city guidelines and where the city boundaries end and where a person's personal property begins. And thank you so much for allowing me to share those comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Does
And
anyone
thank
else?
you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Gaston, at this
Ma'am.
point, there's no more public comment. I would like to close this hearing and then move to the special meeting of Mayor and Council.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. It is currently 7:15. What we'll do is take a 5-minute pause to 7:20, go back into this and then open the special meeting to address some of the issues that we've discussed tonight. Does anybody else have any more comments they want to make before we close this hearing out? Going once, going twice. Thank you. So at 7:20, we will come back. Stay on the call. We'll just mute everybody and we'll come back at 7:20 and then we'll go into our special meeting regarding this particular issue.
All right. Once again, good evening and welcome to the special meeting of Mayor and Council of Brentwood. Today is Thursday, June 29, and we're starting this meeting at 7:20 p.m. I will have for town clerk to call the roll. Mr.
I'm not sure if Mr. Moran's having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to take over real quick. Real quickly, Mayor Lopez, are you here? Okay, great. Councilmember Rowe?
Present.
Present.
Councilmember Monroe?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Sorry about that. Answering for you.
Councilmember Monroe? Vice Mayor Leggin?
Present.
And Councilmember Taylor?
Present.
The town clerk is here. I'm not sure if he's having some technical difficulties or we're maybe over expanding on our Wi-Fi here at the town hall. But he is here. In your town administrator is here. The police chief is excused. Treasurer is excused, and the town attorney is excused as well. And I think that is everyone. Mayor Lopez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Gaston. Can you please upload the agenda?
There is a special meeting agenda. Hopefully everyone can see it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gaston. So again, this is the meeting of the Mayor and Town Council, special meeting of Mayor and Town Council. So we have agenda items. So all I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda of the special meeting.
Sure,
of the
I'll make a
Mayor-
motion to approve the agenda for Thursday, June 29th, 2023.
I guess I have a second too, because I can hear you both. Thank you, Council Member Taylor and Vice Mayor Legging. So I move, all in favor to approve the agenda, say aye.
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 So move. Thank you. Any other public comments during this meeting?
I have none via email.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Okay, I'm going to move to the item of on these agendas, no changes. So I need a motion before discussion. So I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve or for ordinance 2023 shrubs and
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-03 shrubs and trees.
I second.
Thank you. I open the floor for discussion.
I tried my best to jot down everyone's questions, and then I typed them up in the quick break and I emailed them to the administrator and town clerk. I didn't know if that would be helpful in our conversations.
Vice Mayor, anyone else? Any member of the council would like to make some comments?
Okay, so if I may, do you want me to read them or you want me just to show them?
Do you mind bringing them up on the screen so we can?
No
look them
worries.
over?
Give me 1 second, sir.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go from away from the agenda and I'm going to go to your comments. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
The public comments are before you. Let me know if you cannot see them.
I can see them. So I will start the conversation. And I believe one of the first questions we had was, how do we support residents who can't afford to have the work done? I think the concern was with seniors and things like that, or perhaps folks who are on a fixed income. And I know that we had talked in the past about essentially filling out like having an application created that would allow for Public Works to do the work for folks who qualified. And of course, that would be sort of a need-based application. Does that ring a bell with the rest of council?
It does.
Yes.
And is that something that we're still in favor of exploring in the future?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think we
Yes.
had discussed the need to speak with the attorney, just to make sure that we're clear on what the liabilities could be for that. And that would be something that could be integrated into the application process. But yes.
Councilmember Taylor, are you thinking like liabilities for the town or for the residents or the worker?
Either, both, all.
Vice Mayor, if I may,
Yes, sir.
some of these trees, shrubs are located on private property. And if town public works staff does something or is injured, there becomes a liability issue. So that is probably where Councilmember Taylor has raised her concern. Would that be a fair assessment, Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
I wonder if there was, if there was sort of a liability issue that would not allow us to go on private property with Public Works staff, if we could aggregate those need-based applicants who were approved and find sort of a contractor who would cut us a discount essentially for the fact that we'd be giving them a lot of work all at once, just thinking out loud.
That would be what, I mean, if the resident agrees and allows the public works staff to go on their property, then we're fine. We would have to do a waiver and things of that nature, but we just would hate for something to happen and we wouldn't want the property owner to be liable, if you will, or even the town. So there is that. I would think that, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, needless to say, it sounds like council is in favor of finding a way to assist those people who financially can't afford any of those changes. How will it be enforced? I think I had always assumed code enforcement.
I'm sorry, I don't know, Vice Mayor, if you can see my hand is raised. May I
I'm so sorry.
interject
Yes,
at this time?
definitely.
Okay, thank you. Procedurally, being new to the council, are we able to at this point? Because we have voted to support the ordinance, but I do support more dialogue around the ordinance, including asking the lawyer about the liabilities issues before we even go down the road of asking a private company for a bulk sum. But just do we have the time and space to address these and maybe integrate in some of these ideas and changes that the residents have shared? So I'm not sure about procedurally what actually happens. Do we have to vote for it now? And does it have to be 100%? Or can we say, hey, we'd like to consider some more ideas. Let's, pass it.
We don't have to vote for it. We don't have to vote tonight. If we wanted to take some time, revisit some of the issues that were raised, maybe make some changes, we have time to do that.
I vote in favor of that, even though it's not a vote.
And we don't, I don't have any issue like doing another special meeting of the mayor and council. If the mayor, vice mayor would like to amend it, the ordinance, now that we already have the hearing, we don't have to have another hearing. We're just going to amend what you already have, read first, second, and then we have time for make changes and then path, if that's the route that we want to go. So we still have the time and bring it back. So.
And I do think the impetus behind this is our dire concern and urgent concern around safety, that we're noticing increases not only on 38th, but in other areas throughout the town. I'm not sure of the exact amount of accidents. I don't have the police chief report in front of me directly. But I think there's concern that if something more extreme or even another light accident or whatever happens in the interim, we're really concerned about resident safety. But I think that a couple of the residents brought up a good point, like maybe we do start with a targeted approach where we're seeing heavier accidents or incidents, and take some, I don't know if we're able to take some quicker action without the ordinance in the interim. Yeah, so different types of action even.
As far as clearing intersections, there's no action that we can take besides making a kind request, right? So, I mean, one of the comments was recommending safety mirrors. And I think, you know, so I'm sure there's other sort of things we can look at beyond the intersections being cleared, but we can't right now, we don't have anything in our code that allows us to enforce the request that somebody clear their intersection. In fact, the reason why this code is here is because in the last year, we've asked a handful of people to clear their intersection and they kindly refused. So unfortunately, we're at a point where we need to put some teeth into our request.
I'm sorry. I would just also like to note, one of the residents, I believe Ms. Marshall, explained that they don't have any sort of traffic accidents in their area. And I think we also have to stress that this ordinance isn't just to affect what's happening now, it's to create safer pedestrian passages in the future. So because there's nothing now, doesn't mean that there could not be something down the line. I do agree that we could maybe look at this in a way that allows for more nuance and allows for a more ecologically friendly approach. But I think we also have to note that the absence of a problem now doesn't mean that there could not be a problem down the line. And this is to prevent problems down the line, as well as some of the, you know, big issues that are happening right now in other parts of the town.
Right. And I think, you know, I think it's also important to remember that this has a lot to do with pedestrian safety as well. So being able to see, you know, children on the sidewalks as they approach an intersection, or in areas of the town where there is no sidewalk, children on the street as they're approaching an intersection. So,
I'm sorry, may I ask a question? I didn't know if I was cutting you off, Vice Mayor. When we suggest that we might consider some nuances, do we go back to the drawing board then and come back for another special meeting to discuss it? And if that is the case, is there another time to discuss the nuances, including a tough one for our town, parked cars on the corner, right? Other impediments for sight, not just trees and shrubs, I guess.
I just want to say that we have, when it comes to cars, they cannot park. I mean, we can enforce the parking, but there are certain, especially when you get to the intersection, there's some meters away from the stop sign or from the curb that you need to park. So that can be enforceable. So we already have that in place. It's the other piece that we don't have, what Vice Mayor is discussing. I'm in favor, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, there's some areas that there's no issues, but like Councilmember Taylor said, that doesn't mean that in the future will be an issue, right? So it's kind of tough because we've been asking residents to be nice and be willing. If they need assistance, they could come to us. But I guess just not responding doesn't really help us either. So that's what basically pushed us to be in this situation at this point, because they not even consider that there's a danger out there when it comes to accidents.
I feel like in many
Also,
ways,
if I
So it's a tough
may,
one.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember
I'm sorry,
Monroe
Vice
has.
Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This was in response to the previous comment, but also noticed that I think the comments about can we do other things? We are looking at trying to pursue 2 paths, which is just for clarification to the residents, is the Safe Streets for All federal grant. And while we won't have a determination in the next 2 or 3 months, I think it's September, there's a demonstration component to it where we can do activities and get funding to do immediate tasks. So we are trying to pursue that. And then the other plan B is to pursue the traffic and safety plan that Vice Mayor and the Chief described recently at a council meeting. So we're trying to look at other ways to do it, would be my response to that. But I do hear you loud and clear that can we look at targeted ways? And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish by looking at the plan and or look at grant opportunities to do immediate actions. So I just wanted to share that to the residents to let them know that we do have other actions that we're trying to pursue.
I do know in speaking with Mount Rainier, you know, I looked at their code and there's a lot of nuance in their code about this stuff. And so I actually approached a couple of the council members to ask, how's it working for you? And the takeaway I just had was that there was too much nuance, because there was so much nuance, nothing could be enforced essentially. And so they were actually very, very curious to see what we were going to do, because they felt like their approach wasn't working. Which is why I did not include Mount Rainier's code in my examples. I tried to pick code from neighbors where it seemed clear and standardized. And so I'm in favor of having a very sort of cut and dry code, because it doesn't leave a lot to interpretation, and it doesn't invite misinterpretations. I think safety is the goal. I think that's the biggest goal. And I think, you know, we're not asking folks to change their entire yard. We're just asking them to change the part that impacts their neighbors. And when you live in an area like this, where your neighbor's house is 20 feet from you or what have you, you have a special responsibility to your neighbors, which may be different than if you lived in a less populated area. Which is why I'm not in favor of grandfathering in anybody, because either I can see you as you're approaching that intersection or I can't. And for me, it's as simple as that. I did want to talk a little bit about the question about clear vision intersections creating more speeders. We don't have to talk about it at length, but I feel like that's something we haven't touched on yet. We don't have to, but if somebody has anything they'd like to add about that.
Vice Mayor, if I may, someone put in the chat, the suggestion was to grandfather in places that don't have demonstrated sightline issues. That's from Miss Marshall.
I don't have demonstrated sightline issues. You know, it's interesting.
I believe there's another comment in the chat too, and I think if we're gonna read comments, we should read all of the ones that pertain to this discussion.
The parking
I
restriction.
was waiting, I wanted to address her first question, but I'll wait and let the vice mayor answer this question.
All right.
I'm clicking over to the chat. I'm sorry.
But while you do that, the first not question but statement was that the cars cars can park within 25 feet, but we're saying that they have to trim the trees back within a 25-foot space.
Right.
I believe according to the Maryland annotated code, you can't be parked within 20 feet of the intersection. So having that same distance in this particular ordinance, I'm not opposed to having that conversation. I will be open to having that conversation and make those things the same.
So make the ordinance such that it would say 20 feet instead of 25?
Yes.
And I think I see the comment that we just referred to, and then we'll read some of the other comments as Councilmember Ralph suggested. The comment was, the suggestion was to grandfather in places that don't have demonstrated sightline issues. You know, I can think of, you know, some places in which, due to the nature of like one-way streets and things like that, the 3 feet from the public walkways may not be an issue. If you're the last, you know, house at the end of a dead-end street, that would be a good example. You know, I think perhaps this brings us back to a little bit of sort of the enforcement question, you know, like how is code going to determine which places have demonstrated sightline issues? Is that, you know, is that something that code will be entrusted with determining? And if so, would a resident have recourse to argue otherwise? And to both those questions, I would say yes, but I'll certainly open it up to anyone else. I think, you know, as it stands now, code makes a lot of judgment calls. That's why they're hired, is because we think they have good judgment. And if someone wants to contest a ticket, they often find themselves at town hall doing just that. So I don't think this would prove any different in that regard, but I'll certainly allow anybody else to comment on it before I read the other comments. So I will read one more comment, and then I'm going to close the public comments because we did have that portion already.
I
if that's
believe
okay with the mayor.
Councilmember Monroe had his hand up.
Sorry.
No, I apologize. I was actually just wanted a point of order. What was it? What was this question in regards to the comment about the 20 feet versus 25 feet? And okay. And so my only concern would be is we, in theory, should align with what Prince George's County Code currently says, which is the 25 feet. So that'd be my only concern. We're trying to drop it lower than the 25. And I think this is also tied into the comment about, will cars be allowed to park within? Basically, should we have equal enforcement to vehicles? And I would agree with that personally. I think it should be equally enforced because cars typically are higher than, much higher than the hedge height that we're talking about right now for shrubbery. So I'd agree with, there should be some alignment. I think that procedurally that has to be a separate ordinance discussion, but it definitely is. I agree that we should tackle it. So thank you.
We have one more comment in the section. The way we are reading it is part B. This is from Mr. Remlin. prevents all shrubbery along sidewalks. Does this ordinance only pertain to shrubbery along all sidewalks? Does this ordinance only pertain to the first 25 feet of the sidewalks? Should part B read no hedge bordering within 3 feet of a public intersection instead of no hedge bordering within 3 feet of a public sidewalk? And that is the last comment.
Thank you. I can address that, just that means any public sidewalk or path. The hedge can be 3 feet, just like a fence can be. But when you have a hedge that is taller than 3 feet along a public path or sidewalk, that's when you have issues going in and out of your driveway, being able to see or be seen going in and out of your driveway. And so I read section B as not just within the intersection 3 feet, but anywhere along a public sidewalk or public street. And so certainly, you can have anything growing up to 3 feet within 3 feet of your fence line. And then once you get 3 feet past your fence line, then you can grow things to the moon. But for that first 3 feet between like the sidewalk and your property, that whatever is growing needs to be the same level as your fence, which is 3 feet, to allow folks to see you coming in and out of your driveway and to allow you to see clearly as you're going in and out as well. And I think just for a point, I don't know if this is a point of order or not, but I believe actually our code says that cars can't park within 15 feet of intersections. I think that's the Brentwood code. The county code may be 20, but I believe Brentwood is 15. But I think to Councilmember Monroe's point, that's a separate ordinance. But I guess our question today would be like, would we want to amend this ordinance to say that the clear vision intersection would be 15 feet? Or would it be 25 feet? And because we've been basing this on how fences are viewed by the county to maintain clear sight lines. And so would folks today be interested in changing the ordinance from 25 feet to 15 feet so that it would be more, so it would have less to do with fences and more to do with cars?
If we changed it to 15 feet, that would decrease the amount of yard space that's affected, correct?
Correct.
I would actually like a happy medium of 20.
And I believe one of our neighbors does 20 as well. Oh, it's Tacoma Park. Who is in Montgomery County, but just saying, they did 20 feet as well.
I appreciate the happy medium. I appreciate the safety concerns. I don't have young people in my life that are very short, so I don't know exactly what the best height would be for anything, or the best. I feel very much at a lack of understanding the scientific background, or I feel like some of the residents have brought up good points that have me questioning the absolutism of the ordinance, unfortunately or fortunately. I don't feel like I have enough public safety data in front of me. I think the whereases were written for the Safer Streets for All grant. looking at a more broad spectrum application of safety concerns. And I feel like I would want this ordinance to have some more, and again, we're not just looking at current safety data, but, and I don't know that there is predictive safety data. So I don't know if 20 or 25 or 15 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 feet, or, you know, so what we go on is practices by other communities. And I don't have the Mount Rainier ordinance in front of me to understand what the nuances are. And I don't know if I need to have the, you know, the written analysis from Mount Rainier of what the complaints were around those nuances. Does their code enforcement have data or a report to provide that says, you know, this is nearly impossible to enforce, or is it just, you know, word of mouth? And so I'm not sure that I feel like I have enough data, but I also am still deeply concerned about the safety of our residents. So this is, as the mayor said, very tough call. And I'm not sure if there's a more middle ground even than, you know, 20 feet and 3 feet. You know, just talking about feet. I'm not sure. So I'm just sharing that with you all.
Vice Mayor and Mayor, I realized that this particular person jumped in late, but he had difficulty getting on. He's in the chat. You might want to read his comment, but he was having difficulty getting into the Zoom. And I think his comment should at least be read for the record. That
Go
would
ahead,
be
Mr.
Yeah, that would be JJ McCracken.
JJ McCracken.
JJ McCracken. I can read it, or Vice Mayor or Mayor. I mean, either way, however you want to do it.
I just wanted to know JJ McCracken is not a man.
He's not a what?
Not a man. You said
all I said was, yes, you're correct. I apologize. But JJ McCracken, that's fine. My apologies. Okay, so if we cut down our older trees and change habitat we've cultivated for years to foster specific species, birds and bugs, this is such a big proposed change to residents' current property designs, landscaping, native plant propagation, building wildlife environments, the jarring change. I just want to urge the town to communicate with our residents respectively and carefully while we adjust, which necessarily includes not slapping gooey stickers on people's cars, windows, and fines on their doors. I suggest making this info all code info easy to find on the Brentwood website. If it isn't now, big lack of transparency respectfully needs work, and then issuing warnings for a long period of time before issuing fines. Thank you.
If I may,
Please.
We're not advocating for anyone to cut down their trees. If you have a tree that falls within that existing sight line, we're just asking you to shore it up to 8 feet to increase visibility. So if you have a tree, the tree can absolutely stay. We just need to have it trimmed. In addition, once whatever iteration of the ordinance is passed, there will be a grace period. We don't intend to just start slapping people with fines. We don't want this to be punitive. This isn't intended to be a punitive ordinance. We're trying to create pedestrian safety. And I think we need to frame the way we think about it as pedestrian safety. We've had a lot of accidents. We've had a lot of people affected by not being able to see vehicles and or people while they're driving. So there won't be any instant fines or anything like that. There will be a grace period where we will give people time to come into compliance with whatever the final iteration of the ordinance is. And that may not even be something that happens tonight. It sounds like we have some more discussion to have. But we're not going to start sending out fines next week. We have to give you time to get your property together.
Does council have anything else that they would like to discuss regarding ordinance 2023-03? I'm going to set forth a motion if you don't.
I do have a question.
Please.
What would, and this is for the sake of new council, old council, as well as residents, what would the process look like in order for someone to request a variance to maybe not trim a tree or not have to trim a shrub or something like that? What would that process look like?
I'm thinking, right? So if somebody receives a ticket for one thing or another, and they want to, or a warning, let's say, because of course warnings would go out first. How, what do they do if they don't agree with that warning? I suppose they would make their case down at town hall, or they would come in front of the town council and ask for an exemption. Oftentimes folks have come before town council looking for an exemption, perhaps for handicap spots, right? So, they request a handicap spot. It doesn't fit in to the requirements of code as outlined, in code as to who qualifies for it, but they come before council and they make their case as to why they would like an exception made. So I think it would look like that.
And do we have in place any metrics that we would use to measure whether that variance will be granted or not?
What would we be measuring, respectfully, Councilmember Taylor?
If it's safe to grant the variance. Because I think some of the residential concern is that to them this feels arbitrary. And I want to remove that feeling as much as we can. And also understanding that we won't be able to satisfy everyone with this ordinance. To some extent, it does have to be a broad stroke.
Sure. I mean, I think we have some measures built into the ordinance, right? 3 feet high or 8 feet high, 20 or 25 feet from the property line. I'm thinking to one of our residents' concerns about saplings, right? So they were said, well, what if there's a sapling that's growing in that 25-foot triangle, let's say, and it's 4 feet tall? Do I have to cut that down? That to me seems like a perfect example of where a variance or an exception could be made by council. Because if you've got a 25-foot triangle by 25-foot triangle, that's completely free and clear, 3 feet, 8 feet, and then you've got this little sapling in there. That seems like a reasonable a reasonable thing to ask for an exception for. I don't think we can build it like every situation into code. And I think it's a dangerous task to try and do that. But I think, folks are elected on council because they have good judgment and are reasonable. And I think we've been entrusted to make all sorts of decisions. And I think if someone wanted to come to us with some sort of exception like that about like the sapling in an otherwise clear field, my belief is that any council, this or any other council, would make a sound judgment based on that request. And I'm gonna hand it over to Councilmember Rauch.
And I don't know that we need to see the email screen anymore at this point. A variance, does the resident need to wait until they're given a warning notice before they request the variance, or can they preemptively request a variance knowing what their yard is right now and their sapling or situation and say, hey, I know this ordinance is here and I'm requesting a variance now? Is that possible?
That seems reasonable to me, because again, I'm looking back on, handicap parking. They asked for that request prior to them getting it. You know what I mean? So that would seem reasonable.
And the process that we go through to approve a handicap parking space. I don't know that they're the same level of consideration, but is that a fair process to apply to a variance?
I mean, I think it would honestly be pretty similar because again, the police would be involved, as would code, and they would offer their suggestions, you know, and so I think it would be very similar in a lot of ways because, you know, the police chief as well as code is entrusted with public safety every day. And so they would be essentially the subject matter experts to inform council's decision about whether to grant a variance, just like they are with many other things.
And those actually go then to council for us to approve, if that's my understanding.
That's how I would see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any
questions? I'm sorry. Is any other questions or any comments that we have?
If you're interested, we do have, looks like Miss Marshall to clarify, many understory trees won't survive if trimmed up to 8 feet, nor young canopy trees. And then somebody put a link in the chat, which I can't pull up, but you put a link in the chat. It's an article, National Association of City Transportation, sight lines, visibility, and things of that nature. It's an article, it's in the chat.
Thank you, James. All right, I guess if there's no other questions, comments, I'll move to have Mr. Moran to call the roll.
I don't
All right.
see, oh, there he is, there he is. He is back, all right.
Mayor, may I amend my motion, please?
Oh, yes, you can.
I'd like to amend my motion such that section C reads 20 feet, not 25 feet.
Second that.
Do we need a second? I'm sorry.
Yes, we need a second to amend his.
I second.
Thank you. Now gonna have Mr. Moran to call the roll.
All right, we have Councilmember Kiana Taylor,
I would like to have a little more discussion before we pass this, so I'm going to vote no.
Larry,
Councilmember Marcus Monroe,
Point of clarification on process before voting. Will any language on exemptions and variances be provided as a additional edit after this? Or are we suggesting that we take the motion as seen, and that would be the language? Just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
I would suggest that we take the motion with the language as stated.
Okay. So I vote no simply because I want to have that variance language included in this. Though I agree with the spirit of the ordinance.
next we have Councilmember Lauren Roque,
I agree to, I'm voting no with the need for a variance.
next up we have Vice Mayor Stefan Leggett.
Yes.
oh, At this point, motion is dry because there's not enough. Support. So I will say my suggestion will be to revise it, and we still have time to amend it if that's the case, and we don't have to go through the whole process if we make the amendments. So, and if that's the agreement of the council, we can have a special meeting of mayor and council if that happened, you know, those changes happen, to present it again and call the roll once again for vote. That fine?
That is good. How are we going to do that in an expeditious manner since we're on summer recess?
I will suggest that we can have a Zoom meeting. I think a lot of people will be available soon versus being in person, especially when we're going to have a recess. So that was a suggestion that we can have. We don't have to have anything else in the agenda, but just to bring back this ordinance if you wish to reconsider the amendment, so the proposed language.
Councilmember Monroe.
Sorry about that. I raised my hand and then the mayor actually answered a lot of my questions, but I'll say it out loud just to kind of reiterate. Time is a concern to me too, and while I voted no, just can be clear that I want it to go through, and I'm in support because I have small children that get impacted by this. I think I just want to make sure that the variance language was clear, and that Jason or Attorney Deloach had a chance to look at it, but it's expeditious as possible that we can do this. So I know we're on recess, but I'm all for meeting at the soonest possible time to approve this ordinance. Because I would like to see an effort go through to address this at the sidelines.
If I may, and I don't want to speak for Attorney Deloach, but I'm almost sure he read this and didn't have any issues with it. The variance is a new issue, but I'm pretty sure he read it and he didn't have any problems with it.
Yeah, and now specifically to the variance, that's all it was, because it was something that he hadn't provided and or read yet.
And Councilmember Monroe, so I better understand, are we speaking, when we say variance, are we talking about writing into the code language which addresses sort of what recourse residents have if they want a variance?
Yes, and Attorney Deloach may come back and say that can be done in a different manner other than it being done in the ordinance, and I would defer to his judgment on that. But I think as long as that process was laid in front of me of how I could explain that to a resident, I would feel better about the vote. But again, the way the ordinance is presented, just to be clear, is I'm fine with the 20 feet or 25 feet. I think is appropriate. 20 feet is in line with the 20 feet approaching a stop sign rule that's already in our charter. And then that would start to make things consistent. So I'm fine with that. I think we need to address the sight lines at intersections. Is just simply making sure I understand the process for the variance, whether it needs to be an ordinance language or it's simply a form that we provide to residents. Similar to like building projects, you can do a variance and it's not necessarily always written into a code. You just go do the form to that particular department. So I just would like him to clarify that part for us.
Yeah, my expectation is that it would be something separate from the ordinance, but
yeah.
This is when we need Jason.
Yeah. Again, because I think that people are concerned that this is arbitrary, I just like to remove some of that anxiety. Naturally, people are, worried about how this will affect the ecology and the animals and the birds. And this ordinance is not an attempt to be insensitive to that. We're really just trying to be as safe as we can. So there will be some inconvenience. We apologize in advance.
And we heard from the residents that it'll be important for us to communicate in excess, or once this happens, to have a long time where folks have a chance to adjust with warnings, and to offer assistance to residents who can't afford it themselves. So there's more pieces than just the ordinance. So, okay, so it sounds like the missing piece is what to do to request a variance. And so I will speak with Jason about what the best how that looks, right? The best way to make that look. and then work with him to have some language created. And then we'll come back together to discuss. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Councilmember Monroe?
Last question. Are we expected to come back with a clear game plan for grants or helping people with the funding gap to address it on their property? If I understood that right, should we come back to that meeting kind of prepared to give our input on that, or is that something that you think we can still tackle when we come back in August? Because I know people are asking in the comments in the meetings today.
Right. I think it seems reasonable. We've gotten pretty good at creating applications for folks in need with all the ARPA programs. So I feel like it's reasonable to create both documents at the same time and bring them back to our next meeting, Okay. So we'd have three documents to review: the ordinance, the financial help, and the variance request.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is that good? Okay.
That's great. Thank you. So, Vice Mayor, will you let me know when you have this figured it out with the attorney, so I can call for a special meeting of the mayor and
Yes.
council?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. I'm going to move to the next item in the agenda, which is the motion to approve funding for the survey on 39th Street. Mr. Gaston, do you have the documents up?
I do. I apologize when I apologize. The survey is will be done by a certified surveyor, and he will make the recommendation as to where the actual property line is on 39th Street. For those who are not aware, that there is a tree that was planted. It has now grown, and the question is, quite frankly, whose tree is it? And the survey will make that determination as to whose tree is it. Is it the property owner or is it town's? This section of 39th Street does not have a sidewalk. And since it doesn't have a sidewalk, the general consensus is that everything from the curb to the property is not necessarily the property owner, but it is the responsibility of the property owner. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's not town property. It could be town property, but it's still a responsibility. With that being said, the survey would cost $2,000, which is the going rate for a certified surveyor. We're using the same company that did the survey, or is doing the survey between Allison Street and the railroad tracks. So if I can get a vote on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Do we
James.
know where this, I'm sorry, Mayor,
That's what I
Mayor,
said.
if I may ask a question?
Yes, I would like to have a motion first before discussion. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
The question is specific to the motion. I just wanted to know if we know where this is coming from, or if it's going to be to be determined by the treasurer.
It will
Thank
be
you. Term by the treasurer.
To be determined by the treasurer?
Yes.
I move that we approve $2,000 for the street survey line item to be determined by the town treasurer.
Thank you. Now we can open for discussion. Sorry.
Raising my hand, who came up with $2,000? Sorry, I don't see a document associated with this agenda item. I'm sorry if I missed it.
Give me one hot second and I will pull that up. Hold on.
And is this from the surveyor who is contracted with the town? Is that? Okay, yes, okay, thank you, Mayor. So that's not, we have to go and ask 3 different quotes. We already have an established contract with them. Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate the indulgence.
Any other question or comment? Here none, I will have them around to call the roll.
Did we want to wait for, I'm sorry, I can't see if Mr. Gaston has put the invoice up.
And I'm sorry, I didn't know that this was from the contracted surveyor, so I'm okay with not looking at the invoice if that was the
Okay.
estimate that they've provided us. I'm sorry about that. I'm good to move forward.
All right, I'll go and do roll call or wait a bit.
Yes, Ms. Moran, you can do a roll call if there's no other question or comment.
Councilmember Marcus Monroe,
Yes.
Councilmember Keona Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauren Rowe,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stefan Legging,
Yes.
and Mayor Rocio Lopez.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very
So-
much. And the next item that I have is, give me one second, when I pull up the agenda, here it is. Bartlett Park exercise equipment. So we contracted with our current contractor to repair some equipment, and when they went in, and specifically the squat machine apparently needs an additional $1,300 part to make that usable. And the funding will be determined by the treasurer, and that is to repair the squat machine, which is right next to the gazebo, for those who are not familiar with that. So that is the other item, and I'd like to move on this so we can have the equipment available for summer use.
And that is a motion that the funding is being requested. I think there's a specific line item that I don't remember the number, but if you can say the same thing to be determined by the treasurer, that would be great.
Could you give that amount one more time, please, Mr. Gaston? You said 1,300?
Yes, ma'am, $1,300, and this is through the playground specialists, folks. These are the same company that is providing us with soccer goals and does all the maintenance on the playground and exercise equipment in Bartlett Park.
I move to approve $1,300 for the repair of the exercise equipment in Bartlett Park, line item to be determined by the treasurer.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Moran, you can call the roll. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Lauren Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcus Monroe,
Yes.
Councilmember Keona Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stefan Legging,
Yes.
and Mayor Rocio Lopez.
Yes. So it's approved. Thank you. And I going to, before we adjourn, we just going to read back again the upcoming events.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll do it quickly. Tuesday, July 4th, we will be closed, but the town will also be closed on Monday, July 3rd. Thank you to the mayor and town council. Saturday, July 8th is the public safety meeting, right, Councilmember Roque? Just shake your head, yes. 10 o'clock, July 15th, the green team is at 9 a.m. The senior citizens meeting, that will be July 17th at 10 a.m. here at Town Hall. And we're having a special presentation by the Department of Housing for seniors. Tuesday, August 1st will be National Night Out. That will be from 5:30 to 7. Then we're having our summer concert series, which the town should be very excited about. Really quickly, July 29th, Saturday, August 19th, and Saturday, September 9th. The festivities start at 5, the music will start at 8, and it will start at 6, that will end at 8. And not to be outdone, the mayor will have her annual back to school supplies giveaway from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday, August 24th. And I gave you the time. And I think that's it. And we can adjourn after that. The next council meeting will be Tuesday, August 15th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gaston. So I need a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, can I ask a question? I'm going to be a pain in the butt.
No worries.
Would it and I apologize for going out of order, but would it be permissible to make a motion to pass the ordinance contingent on the creation of a variance form and a financial aid form within like 30 days? The only reason I bring this up is because, you know, once it's passed, it's another 30 days before it actually can be enforced. And I'm concerned that the further we push this back, the less good we're going to be able to do before the fall. And it seems like we're all sort of in agreement that with the passing of a variance request and a financial aid form, that we would be in favor of this ordinance. So could that be contingent on the motion?
You can put a motion out there because we're still in the meeting. We have not adjourned, so you can do another motion and like you said,
I'll make the motion for discussion. So I make a
Vice
motion.
Mayor. Vice, I'm sorry, could your motion say not only the creation, but consensus approval of variance and or financial aid document?
Would you mind making the motion for me?
Sure.
So say that again, creation of, say that again?
Creation of and creation and consensus, you know, I'm tired, consensus to approve the application for variance as well as financial aid.
Give me a motion so Mr. Larry can document it, please.
So I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-03 shrubs and trees contingent on the creation and consensus of council in creating a variance request and a financial aid form.
Right, so now open for discussion. If there's any comment.
Within 30 days. Vice Mayor, within 30 days.
I'm sorry, let me amend that. Within 30 days, yes.
Mayor, my only comment is that addresses my concern, so I'm in favor of that motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so anything else? Councilmember Rao?
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
All right, so I will have our town clerk, Mr. Moran, to call the roll.
Councilmember Lauren Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcus Monroe,
Yes.
Councilmember Keona Taylor.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Stefan Ligging,
Yes.
and Mayor Rocio Lopez.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. So that ordinance is approved to move pending with all the requests that he will be submitting to us with the changes made. All right, so I guess that is it. I wish all the residents and staff and council to have a wonderful weekend and be safe out there. It's 4th of July coming up. So since the staff were attending the MML conference this summer, I took the liberty to give them not only Tuesday off, but they will be off on Monday. So town hall will be closed on Monday and Tuesday. So with that, thank you so much. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:23 p.m.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. All right, good night, and thank
Good
you
night.
for your
Thank you all.
Everybody.
All right, thank
Good
you.
night.